Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Elevate, an online learning platform for fundraising event professionals. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristin Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. We're excited today to talk about immersive experiences, experiential marketing, what we can do to connect our donors better through our events. We brought on the expert in experiential marketing to talk to us today. But before we dive in, we want to make sure to remind you that if you want to take your fundraising events to the next level, we are just a month away from our annual Elevate conference. The conference is a 2-day deep dive into your annual signature event and how to raise more money, how to move your audience and create a movement through your fundraising events. So we hope that you'll join us. Check it out at swaimstrategies.com. You can register to attend in person or virtually. Well, today's conversation I've been really looking forward to because we've invited a longtime friend to join us. We're excited to have Sammy on the show. But before we jump into the conversation, Kristin, why don't we introduce Sammy to everyone?
This is the most formal we're going to get. Sammy Bliss has spent most of his adult life producing experiences of all shapes and sizes, including live theater, music festivals, PR stunts for film, concerts, art events, and beyond. Sammy started his career as an actor. After 10 years of producing live theater, he moved into developing PR stunts for the film and television industry, creating out-of-the-box ways for movie and television studios to get some extra media attention for new releases. During this time of producing big, outlandish concepts, he was introduced to the experiential marketing design and app fabrication company ASV. 11 years later, Sammy finds himself as the Vice President, Client Services at ASV. Sammy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we, the three of us, actually know each other from producing theater in Los Angeles many years ago, or as I like to say, once upon a time.
Not that many. I mean.
Once upon a time in LA.
Oh, no, we're old, Sammy. We're old now.
We have crested.
Speak for yourself, ladies.
Thank you for
I'm
that.
still 25.
I love it. Live theater itself is actually an amazing immersive experience. And so just to kick us off today, what do you think is possible when you put rooms of people together to watch stories?
Well, I think that's kind of where the magic happens, where you get people, talented people all aligned around sort of the same vision and the same goals, right? That's where the magic really has always sort of happened for me. And I think that as an audience member, right, being able to be kind of transported out of, for lack of a better word, like our lives, right? We like to go to movies. We like to do these things that get us out of our heads and out of our experiences and our day-to-day and our lives and our jobs and our kids and everything. So I think the magic happens on both sides of the stage, really, with live theater. I think it's the group putting it together and putting their heart and soul into whatever it is, whether it's live theater or another creation. It's all stuff you need to collaborate on, right? And when you get people, again, who are good at what they do, they love what they do, they're creative, we've got the one goal in mind, magic happens, right, on the production side. And then ideally, if that magic is popping off on the production side, it's popping off in the front of house too, and the audience is having that same experience. There's nothing quite like it. I was actually at this event last night, and I started chatting with this lovely woman who also had a theater background, and we were just gushing about live theater, and we're like how fun it was and how immersive it was and how much everyone came together to make magic. So anything live like that, be it theater or a live experience or even like a trade show or an event or a music festival or a sporting event, like it's people coming together to make a thing and people coming together to experience that thing. And that's where I love it all.
I love that. So I love that you dove into the work that goes into it, because when you think about all of the effort that goes into production, I have witnessed magic happen with you DJing and the ability as a DJ that you have to feel the energy of an audience and then to move them to a different place, right? To be able to have an audience vibing in one place and then move as a group collectively to another place. And it reminds me of the London research.
Yep.
University of
Yep.
London did a research study where they connected heart rate monitors to audience members in a live theater. And they found that as they watched a story unfold in front of themselves, that collectively the heart rates in the room synced. And I just think that that's so powerful to think about our heart rates, like literally connecting when we're in space together and when we're in that moment where we can experience something together. And that's something I've witnessed with you, both on stage as an actor, in your sort of experiences that you create in your world now, but also in your time as a DJ on the stage. So experiential marketing, I think, is something that may be a new concept to some of our nonprofit friends, but it's also something that's really blown up in the past 20 years. And so I want to know a little bit about just how you would describe it for folks that might be new to it. Can you tell us what it is and maybe give us like an example of where you've had experiential marketing really come to fruition?
Yeah, for sure. So I think marketing for as long as marketing has been a thing has always been print, media, commercials, magazines, and then in the last 20 plus online. Experiential marketing just basically is anything kind of other than that that's a little more in person. It's basically giving a consumer base or a group of people an experience that ties in or is sponsored by or produced by, in my case, a brand or an IP, a film or movie title, or a product, whatever that is, right? So we're giving people an experience that ideally elevates the consumer sentiment about a brand or a product, right? So the experiences don't have to be like we do. We're part of a large hospitality build out for Red Bull at the Formula One races in Miami and Las Vegas every year. And they're not, I mean, there is obviously free Red Bull everywhere, right? But they're not trying to sell you Red Bull. They're not like, oh, here, take a case home with you, or here's a coupon, right? Like Wendy's does that. We did a lot of stuff for Wendy's. You'll get, among the things they'll give out are like little $5 discount cards to go to a Wendy's and get a burger or whatever. Red Bull's experience is a very different and much more elevated this experience. So they're basically giving you an amazing experience. Obviously for Formula One events, it's for race fans. So people that already love racing and they want to have an elevated experience. So Red Bull is there to give them this super nice experience. I mean, we build out, it's a multi-level event space with open bars and amazing catered food and TVs to watch the things and all the stuff, right? And things to do and activities. So at the end of that, it's not super important to that brand to be like, oh, I want people to walk away from this experience and go to the 7-Eleven and buy a Red Bull. They're really giving you an experience you're never going to forget. You're going to go tell all your friends, oh, I was at the Formula One races in Las Vegas. It was epic. I was right on turn 3. Red Bull had this whole amazing, and it's that, right? So it's walking away from something. Experiential is so much about what are people walking away from your experience with, right? Not necessarily a physical tchotchke, but there's lots of that too. But like, what is
the emotional connection?
What is that? What's the emotion? What's the feeling? What's the vibe? Like, are they excited? Did they? And again, it comes back to like giving people, trying to elevate the perception of the brand, of the product, whatever that may be.
Well, you're cultivating a relationship with them, right?
Yeah.
Like, just in your example where you're talking about Red Bull, you're creating an experience, and from that, you're experiencing the hospitality of the brand. You're experiencing the vibe of the brand and what they want you to feel. And I mean, parenthetically, this is your life with Red Bull, right? And that's happening, but you're creating a space where they can experience you in not just a transactional way. Here's my coupon. Here's my drink.
Correct.
Here's that. That's what I'm doing. And for our nonprofit folks, as we start to introduce this idea for them to think about mission and experiential marketing, so to speak, around mission, that really that's a frame to think about it in that way, is you're utilizing this moment to cultivate an experience that that underscores your relationship, that strengthens your relationship and their knowledge of you and what you're doing.
Yeah, I feel compelled to bring Paul Zak into the
Yeah.
conversation. Sammy, we have a fan favorite, Paul Zak, who wrote a book called Immersion, and he wrote a whole book researching this particular phenomenon that happens when you give people an immersive experience and what sort of are the hallmarks and benchmarks of creating brand allegiance and brand alignment, where people like, you know, the brand Apple, we always hear of like the lines around the block for the latest release product coming out. People don't even know what it does or what it is, but they're going to wait overnight in line for it, right? What is the thing that creates that brand allegiance? And he has identified that there are hallmarks of an immersive experience that create such an emotional resonance for folks because, like you said, they were on turn 3 in this most epic event. And that creates a sense of when I'm standing at the 7-Eleven next time looking at
My choices,
I'm grabbing the Red Bull. That's the opportunity that we have with our missions when organizations are thinking about building and cultivating donor relationships. How do we create an event that immerses them in our work so much that when they have the 7-Eleven refrigerator of options,
the choice to make their donation location,
that they're choosing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that example, Sammy. It's a fun example too.
What are some of the core elements that give audiences an experience that they'll remember and share?
Well, it can be a lot of things. It depends on a lot of variables. It depends on what the goal of the event is, right? What the brand or the product's goal is, obviously, where you are, what the event is, who the audience is, that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, I think everybody kind of wants what's cutting edge, right? Like when we have the opportunity to integrate technology into our physical experiences and our physical builds and our physical displays and our interactiveness, everybody kind of wants the newest, greatest thing, right? So, and technology moves so fast that, you know, one day it's augmented reality, you know, it's AR, and then suddenly it's XR, and then it's suddenly, and things are just constantly
I don't
going.
even know what XR is. What is XR?
XR is like blanking on what it stands for, but it's kind of a more holistic augmented reality experience. I haven't really even dove into it much.
Like
but
VR with all the like 5 senses, like you smell things and taste things?
Yeah, like kind of everything, like experience reality. You know what I mean? Like it's just this. It's just constantly moving, right? So you got to be kind of clever and kind of strategic about what that is that you're bringing to the party, right? Even if it's something as simple as a photo op, right? Where everyone's done a photo op. And amazingly, it's still, people love a photo op, right? But it's what you do with that photo op. You know what I mean? You got to kind of make it, it's like a photo op in front of a step and repeat. You know, it has its moments, but it's not a big draw, right? A photo op, you know, then there's green screen where you can put yourself in anywhere. I'm on the Great Wall of China. I'm on top of the Eiffel Tower, you know, like there's that kind of thing. Then there's like 3D immersive experiences. Like I'm always pitching the idea of doing three-dimensional postcards, right? Like the old like, hey, you know, greetings from New York City. And there's a backdrop and then there's dimensional stuff in front. So you look like you're on the sidewalk in New York City, but it's a cool photo op and then the words are scribbled. Like it's kind of that creativity. Like creativity counts for so much in experiential. You can even, and of course, budget is a big part of this, right? Like the more budget you have available, the cooler stuff you can do. But people are limited in budget. And if you got creativity, you can get around a lot of that, right? You can have a cool idea, but okay, I don't have $100,000 for that particular piece of the puzzle. How can we do that or fake it or make it cool or do just like a more modest version of it to get to where we want to go, right? To get to our goals. Venue too, like your location. That can be part of it. I did an event at the National Portrait Gallery in DC and a couple of years ago, for an ophthalmology client, and they just wanted to do a big reception. They wanted to do a big presentation with like 100 or 150 doctors that were here in DC for a show. And I had to do absolutely nothing to the venue. It is so spectacular. It's so stunning. You walk in and half your battle is done for you, right? Like people are already wowed. Then I'm bringing in AV and video walls and projectors and projections and seating and bars. And we're doing a dinner up in this other gallery and all that stuff. But so venue can, be a big part of that too. But really like creativity, if you have the ability to tie in a celebrity, a person, a sports person, anything like that, big draw all the time. People talk about that kind of stuff, right? It's really about like creating, like we always hear we hear a lot now, experiences over things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially this time, at certain times of year where it's like stuff, right? Valentine's Day, Christmas, birthdays.
Yeah.
We all think about getting people stuff, right? But there's also a movement that's like, let's give people experiences. Hey, for your birthday, I'm going to take you to Zion and we're going to go hike the Narrows. That's something you remember your entire life. Nobody's going to remember the new Cuisinart that you just got, when you're on your deathbed, right? So that's what experiential really brings to the table, is this experience. Like, oh, that was a cool commercial, nice print ad, but wow, I was on turn 3 at LVGP, sponsored by this brand that I'm now never going to forget.
Yeah. It's almost like it calls extra attention to the idea that this is just a moment.
Right.
You have this moment and it can either blur into the rest or it can be an opportunity for both memory and immersion into whatever that is, whether it's a brand in your case or, for our nonprofit friends, a mission moment, but that you can gather people, but make it worth doing.
Yeah. Well, the photo op is something that I want to highlight because every nonprofit I think does a photo op.
Yes.
And when we have the creativity behind that moment where it is something that they can tangibly share out to the world, right? That here they were dressed up, looking their best, showing up for this cool event. And regardless of what their experience was at the event, if you give them a really great photo memory of it, they will share that out. And that becomes its own marketing tool for you. It definitely creates the like FOMO element, right? Like, well, I wish I was there. So, and I think there's a benefit to that also for brands or for nonprofits, that it is sort of natural marketing that happens, just like basic word of mouth.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think the catchphrase is organic. You get organic eyes, organic marketing, organic visibility, right? When people are enticed and encouraged on their own to share stuff socially. I mean, that changed the entire game when the internet became a thing, right? Like, as somebody was like, oh, I'm going to date myself here, but I'm going to post a photo on MySpace, right? Like way back in the day. And like, oh, this is awesome. I can connect to all my friends. And then Facebook and Instagram and all the rest just came out of the woodwork. I mean, that's a huge part of it, is like trying to get the consumer interested enough that they want to help you do your marketing. And simply by taking that photo or that video. We built a 360 video booth once where you stood on a platform and a camera went whizzing around your head.
They're so popular right now.
They're so cool.
And now they're everywhere, right? And it's fun. It's a cool effect. And now you can do all these film effects and like to make it a GIF or make it a slow-mo or change the color saturation. Like there's so much stuff that you can do to make it creative and fun. And we've got this whole new world and this whole new generation that I kind of hate the phrase, but the TikTok generation, where that's all they want to do. They just want to post selfies and videos. I mean, and that's the thing. And then some of them start getting people following them, and that's not what we call influencers, right? Somebody was like, "Oh, I like making model cars, and I've been doing it and posting my videos, and now I have a 500,000 people following me." And then brands are like, "Oh, can we pay you to do marketing for me, or can we invite you to one of our events, give you some free trip?" Right? This happens all the time at almost any big event now. Come in, we'll pay for your flight, we'll put you up, we'll give you free food, board, whatever it is, just to be there and tweet about how cool our event was. Like I see it all the time at all sorts of events, all the time.
Well,
We did a thing
because
at
that's
Lollapalooza for T-Mobile. Same thing. We had influencers there, music. Like it's like buckshot marketing across
Yeah.
the entire globe in one split second.
Yeah, you have all of these ambassadors utilizing their resource for your brand and putting them up, flying them in. All of those things is cheaper than any marketing you're going to try and go and purchase.
Oh, you bet.
And-
Bet. I mean, you think about the like television commercial ads, like we always hear during the Super Bowl and stuff like that. Oh, a 30-second spot is, I don't even know how many millions of dollars now, right? Well, we can do an incredibly immersive, crazy experience for like, let's say $500,000, $250,000, depending on what it is. And you're getting kind of a way more bang for your buck, in my opinion. You've got all these human beings in front of you that are there live having the experience. And then again, you now have the however many billion people are on this planet able to be there with you via the internet in one way or another, whether it's a live stream or it's just people posting photos or experiences and talking about it. So the whole game has just been totally turned upside down by the internet.
Well, that's something that we've seen organizations lean into is, one, how do we get the images that we're taking, our photo op moment, in their hands right away so that they can share it out? So we often have a photography or a photo booth option where they can text it to themselves. That way it's on their phone and they can post it immediately. And then in addition, we have seen organizations start to actually think about who are the influencers in our community that are sharing stories on social media that we can invite to be at our event and help us get the word out. So those sort of two elements are things that show up all the time. But the immersive sort of focus on mission is something that has been an evolution in the past couple of years, where we used to see organizations with their big events go way deep into a theme, right? A circus theme, a casino night, aerial lists. And in that evolution of theme, oftentimes what they were trying to do is create a wow moment, some surprise and delight, an experience for folks, something that people could coalesce around. And yet often it didn't have anything to do with mission.
Right.
And so some of the things that we've been looking at is how do our organizations really focus in on an immersive experience that also is mission driven. So I have a couple of examples that I want to share. We work with a furniture bank that advocates for folks who have been previously unhoused, moving into their first home, and they will stay in their home longer if they have basic needs met, like furniture. And so one of their most requested items is silverware. And so during dinner, we serve dinner without silverware to tell the story of the impact and the need for silverware. Something really simple. Everyone's like, has a bowl of soup and is looking for their spoon. And it allowed us to tell that story, make a point, and then deliver their silverware. And then we told them that that same silverware is going to be cleaned and donated to the furniture bank. We also work with a food bank, a statewide food bank that is kind of unique in its format in that as a statewide entity, they both deliver food all over the state, but they also engage with farmers and ranchers all over the state to bring food back to their distribution hub. And so their event focused on the regionality of food in the area that they're able to source, and had food stations for everyone to go to that focused on those big ranchers and purveyors that were donating food back to the food bank. We have an organization that celebrates BIPOC and LGBTQ community members. And they intentionally, because they're trying to lift DEI work, they intentionally only hire vendors for their event that are within that demographic. And then they really broadcast that out. So all of their vendors are folks that are, getting promotion, that they are a part of this community. And then we work with an organization that really focuses radical hospitality and how they deliver their mission. And so when you show up to their event, they lead with radical hospitality. They have people greeting you. They're offering you a beverage immediately when you walk in. They're escorting you to your seat. There's a gift and a handwritten note for you at your seat. Everything is so thoughtful and intentional, and it's just bringing their mission to life. So I think it's hard sometimes to think about there's these big budget experiences, and then how do we turn that into something that we can actually immersively design for our clients with focusing on mission for our fundraising event. So I'm curious a little bit, Sammy, if you can talk about, for someone who's social service, health education, where like an experience feels really hard. How, like, what tips you have or what recommendations you have for where you start to think about designing an experience from?
First of all, I think radical hospitality is maybe my favorite new phrase. That's awesome, right? I mean, like, but that's a great indication of like how to get people right out of the gate to give them that experience, right?
Yeah.
The extra doting, the extra caring. I think all those examples that you brought up are genius, right? The silverware and here's your soup and I've got no spoon, right? Immediately speaks to the mission and immediately speaks to what the overarching goal is. I mean, for me at the end of the day, and it is a little, right, I'm slightly disconnected because I'm not in the nonprofit space, right?
Sure.
I'm very much in the profit space. I work with big, huge brands that have all the money, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they want to spend it and sometimes they don't. But I think across the board, engagement is so key in these things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that giving them, right, the immersion of an experience can certainly get expensive quickly. The engagement in an experience can, but doesn't have to be. Like, that's where I think you guys in particular who know your industry better than I do can come up with those really clever ideas like, oh, well, it turns out that silverware is a hard to come by item. So let's take this angle to bring it to point right out the gate. I think that engaging people in something, right? Whether it's, oh, I've got nothing to eat with, or, what a cool photo op, or whatever that is. But getting them engaged is so important. I mean, I think we've all been to events and galas and meetings and corporate events and conferences where you're just kind of like zoned out. Somebody's talking, you've lost track of what they're talking about. Like, it's not.
You don't know what day it is.
You don't know what day it is. Am I wearing pants? I don't know. I've lost track. Like that whole thing. We've all been there once or twice, right? No, but it's so important that you steer away from anything that's going to be kind of blah, right?
Yeah.
You've got to engage people right out of the gate, or people tune out, especially, and I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to the internet, but the world that we live in and the egregious access to information that we have, which can be wonderful and can be absolutely terrible at the same time, right? Depending on who it is. I'm going through this with my kids, right? Like children today, it's a terrible time in human history to grow up. And it's also an amazing time.
Yeah.
But the access to information is too much. Mm-hmm. People are walking into every experience in life completely jaded. They know it. They've seen it. They saw it on TV. They saw it on Instagram. They saw it on you, right? So you just got to like foot in the door, radical hospitality. Awesome, right?
Yeah.
Right out the gate. Hey, so glad to see you here. Here's a name tag, whatever it is, a friendly face, a nice gesture. I went to an event once where a woman was wearing this amazing, big kind of like ball gowny thing that had all these glasses of champagne hanging from it.
Yes.
So you walked in, you've probably seen these now, right?
Yeah.
Memorable right out the gate, something cool, something fun. That happened to be at Monterey Jet Center. So there's also like jets and helicopters they were walking by and all this kind of fun stuff. So, right, you can kind of get around the budget topic as well with engagement, with radical hospitality. It's such a great term. I got to write that down. Right, like really getting people engaged right out of the bat, right out of the gate when they walk in.
Well, you're talking about something like all of your examples right now come back to me to staging, which is like, how do we bring people along? Like, how do we extend our hand and bring people in? Because I think that if we walk up to an event or we walk into, a booth at a NASCAR event, and it feels overwhelming or intimidating, or we don't know how to participate, then I think we lose people. And staging to me is one of the fastest ways to immerse people in your event, which is like, is it clear how to get there? Is there signage? Is there a way that's teaching you or directing you? Like, is it clear which is the indoor and the outdoor? Are you welcomed? Sure. Is there visual signage that tells you what to do? Is there a giant screen there that you're supposed to interact with? Does it tell you to interact with it? Is there like anything that indicates where you get started from? Are there directions for how to interact? Like, that is the surest, fastest way to immediately immerse people because it makes engagement easy. And so I think sometimes from an event side of things, we forget to the importance of, if our event is buried in the back of a casino and you have to navigate your way through, a floor of casino machines and slot machines, and you have to figure out how to get to the ballroom, make it easier. Help people to figure out how to get there so that they're able to immerse themselves in the experience.
Well, and I think
that experience starts right there too.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
From the moment, like that reminds me of, we did you guys will remember Benetton, the clothing brand,
Yes.
which was huge in the 80s and into the 90s. And then they basically left North America and kind of were back in Italy, but then they wanted to break back into the US market. We did a pop-up Benetton store at the mall in Santa Monica, 3rd Street, at the base of 3rd Street and Broadway or whatever. Big, beautiful indoor-outdoor mall. And so we took over an empty shop there and turned it into a Benetton store. But you'll remember Benetton has all very, very loud colors, big primary colors everywhere. So then we basically did floor vinyl in, like, it almost looked like a circuit board, kind of like 5 or 6 different colors coming out of the store and then branching out all through the mall, right? So if media or however you hear about this, you're like, oh, let's go down, Benetton's back, right? So they get to the mall, but then to your point, Samantha, where am I? How do I get there?
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you need a really good producer, like you both are, right? Thinking of that stuff, figuring out what the signage is going to be. Do we have people? Do we need people to be walking people? Or what we did is we created this colorful path. And if you stumbled upon any of them, you kind of were like, oh, color. And it led you to the store.
Yeah. What's amazing that I'm thinking about when you were talking about the internet and it being terrible and lovely all at the same time, but also that jaded experience of people coming into things being like, I've seen it, I've done it, whatever, but you haven't, because you've watched it on a screen.
Right.
There is something very different about showing up as a human to have an experience in life that may have technology embedded in it, but showing up to a space and being available to have that experience or to be activated in that way. And I think the more we think about the user experience that way, when we're designing, when we're, it's like there's all this big brainstorming and out of the box and what can we do? And we start boiling it down. And then it's that moment of, what is that moment for the user when they have soup and want to eat it and have no spoon? And then the whole table realizes it. And then the whole room realizes it. And there's a magic that happens in things that you haven't expected, but you have to think about that single user and getting them in the room. And what that is, because if they don't come in the room, it does your big budget clients absolutely no good.
Yeah,
100%. And that differentiation of seeing it online versus being there is everything. I mean, you can see the Sphere in Vegas is a great experience of this. We've all seen videos of the Sphere, both probably certainly from the outside. Maybe a friend went to see a concert there and you saw the video. Awesome, but until you're in the Sphere and you're seeing it and hearing it and seeing the people and feeling the energy of everyone else around you, it's a completely night and day other experience. And that's like the whatever that juju is that we rub off on each other energetically in life is another huge piece of the puzzle, right? You've got people here all enrolled in some sort of similar something, all feeling what they're feeling, engaged, immersed, excited, sad, educated, whatever it is, that elevates the entire thing by itself as well, which again, back to the previous conversation about making sure that whatever you're doing isn't too rote or stale, because then everyone's energy is kind of like, did I turn my oven off before I left the house? Do I need to get my oil changed in my car? Right. But when everyone's in that together, which again brings you right back to live theater, right? The live experience, live production is so magical for that, because the production team is all riding high and making it happen. And then the people are having this experience as well, all for the same mission. So the same goal.
Yeah.
This is why events. This is why events. This is why no matter what is happening and people keep coming to us and are like, yeah, but aren't nonprofit events over? Aren't events done?
No.
We have not found a way to achieve that, as you called it, juju, that that synergy that happens when I'm in a room aligned with other people and we're all moving in a direction together. There is no replication of that yet that meets that moment.
And I don't think those two things are ever really going to meet. Like that was a big educational moment during COVID, right? It's like, okay, nobody can meet in person anymore. You guys did a tremendous job specifically moving over to virtual events. But then when people can go out again, people always want to go out. And those two things, like the virtual is an amazing tool, right? For certain things.
You bet.
But it's never going to give you that endorphin rub off of the people that are around you having the same experience, being at a music festival, being at a Broadway show, being at anything like that where everyone's on that same high. Yeah, it's great added reach that, I'm also live streaming this so you can watch it anywhere in the world. Sweet, right? Little education, a little more brand awareness, right? Like, there's this thing again. But the people that are there, it's night and day different. They're apples and steaks, right?
Yeah.
They're so far, they're so completely dissimilar.
Yeah.
And at the same time, part of the same mission, but the live experience, to your point, Kristin, just events, right?
Yeah.
Live stuff. It's experiences over things again, you know?
Well, and I truly believe that through the pandemic, through the use of technology, like we're seeing the implication of that in divide, right?
Yeah.
Like we're seeing that although we can connect in certain ways, it's also creating like, left, right, red, blue, you, me, us, them. Like it's creating this environment where we're not simply coming together and being in community and hearing each other's stories. And that's, I think that as we evolve into, what the future is going to look like and how we as a society can come back to a place of caretaking, I truly believe at the center of that is going to be gathering.
Yep.
Like I truly think that people feeling the vibe together is what makes you care about other people. It makes you want to be involved in taking care of your community.
You bet.
Well, I want to continue the conversation a little bit about technology, but first we're going to take just a short break to hear from one of our production partners. And when we come back, we can dive in further with Sammy Bliss. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to engage supporters and grow your base with your own podcast? Then let us introduce you to our partners at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. In addition to delivering exceptional live event audiovisual production and videography, they also have a top-tier production studio and an expert team ready to take your content ideas to the next level. Contact the AV department to schedule a consultation and start bringing your podcast vision to life.
And we're back. Some of us have the giggles, and I love it. We are here with Sammy Bliss talking about immersive experience. I want to talk about product immersion today based on your experience. And I want to encourage our listeners to use that frame and think about their product as their mission. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about, Sammy, when you're talking about products, I want people to be thinking about their mission at their organization. And let's talk about the age-old marketing goal. How do you get people invested in your product or in your mission?
Yeah, well, that definitely is the goal, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's primarily a lot of the things we've discussed, right? It's really giving people an experience, an engagement. What are people walking away with?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Not so much physically, but mentally, emotionally. What kind of ride did you give them? And again, like experiential really isn't it's not like it, well, I guess it depends, right? But it's not really in my book meant to be hit you over the head with the product, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product.
Right.
It's like, here's a really cool experience. We do at the US Open Golf every summer, we do a big display for Lexus. They're one of their title partners. And we have the big 60-foot by 80-foot giant tent. We show up there, it's just a tent and a plywood floor. And we bring in everything from premium flooring, walls, graphics, vehicles on display, lighting, audio experiences, a club and hand experience, a swing, a putt, something like that, to engage people from head to toe. And working specifically with the USGA, they really don't want you selling stuff, right?
Yep.
Which is always hilarious because I'm your sponsor, I sell cars, but they don't want you pushing that you're selling cars.
Yeah.
Right. So they push against that a little bit, but it's that, again, it's that kind of immersive experience that is brought to you by this car brand. But really, it's about, you're at a golf event. Obviously, you love golf. You love everything that's going on. You're going to go walk the course all day and follow your favorite player. And then when you come back through Fan Central, or you come back for lunch, or you take a break, come in and have an experience with us, right? It could be, and they're usually golf-related experiences in that environment. And then of course there's metrics tied to it. Like, people are getting registered to do the activations, and a lot of brands want to see those metrics. Well, how many people came through our space? How many people had touch points with our vehicles? How many people did the club and hand experience? Like, that's very valuable also, right? Like, I imagine in the fundraising world, you want to see how many people attended, what kind of funds were raised, what kind of reach did we get? Was there educational components that maybe didn't raise money, but people were like, spoons, crazy, right? Like, what is that? What is that those KPIs, the return on investment, right? So again, I really think like immersion, engagement, and experience are all about whatever it is, whether it is a product, a mission, whatever it is, right? Again, it's giving people an experience, something to remember, talk about, share on social, tell their friends, tell their family, etc.
But it's also an experience of the brand and the brand vibe, right? So while in your example, they're like, don't sell stuff. And they're like, yeah, we sell cars. But they're like, don't sell stuff. You're creating a space where somebody parenthetically in that space is like, this is potentially the experience of Lexus, right? And what that is. And you're creating a way for them to have dimension to their understanding of a product.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to encourage our clients to do is to give some dimension to an experience of your mission.
Yeah.
On paper, I can read you this mission. We believe that no one should be hungry.
Right.
Great. But when I start to experience the collective statewide network of food purveyors who are coming together to make it that no Oregonian should be hungry, that's a different level of my understanding of a grocery store.
Yeah.
When I cook dinner, right? Like, it starts to seep through in those ways. And so I think there's something really interesting about the idea of experience for people working on multiple levels. And basically you're bringing them into your vibe, right? Like, you're like, come in, have this cool thing, but that cool thing needs to reflect the key values of, in your case, the company, in our case, the nonprofit. If it doesn't, if it's not aligned, that's why when people are like, we're going to have a casino night, and we're like, cool, what does that have to do with mission? And they're like, nothing. And in fact, it's working counter to your mission in some ways. When those are in alignment, there's kind of a third space that gets created that's not just something I can experience over here.
Right.
It's like, no, being in that space with other people, experiencing it in 360 gives me a different education about you.
Yeah. Well, Sammy, you said two words that I actually want to define for our audience. You said sponsor, which is something that a lot of our organizations actually have for their events, or sponsors, corporate partnership, where an entity like Lexus, who's selling cars, brands align with your organization. In the nonprofit sector, there's usually like charitable tax deduction. There's community giving efforts that are happening as brand awareness for nonprofit and corporate partners to be pairing up. but you said the word activation.
Yeah.
And I think activation is something that in the nonprofit space we don't talk about a lot. And yet, to me, activation is an opportunity for your sponsors to actually help you elevate your event, which is what that example was for the golf tournament, to have the Lexus tent experience, that you could get out of the heat, that you could come and get a cold drink, that you could have this nice lounge to be in. It's a way to elevate the guest experience in relationship to the golf tournament too, not just in relationship to Lexus. So in the nonprofit space, I think our sponsors have a lot that they can bring to the table around elevating your event by creating experiences for you. We had a partnership with an organization that Nike came on board, and Nike said, our corporate giving dollars have actually been taxed for this organization. We don't have, we can't increase our giving, but we have other funds for events that we host that we could actually support you with, things like bringing in a specialty item. And so they designed a Nike lounge at the event that was this cool hang space for everyone. There was like dance party. They had late night treats and snacks. That was like the post-event gathering. Yep. So I think activation is something that is a key element to think about. Technology. We talked about technology before the break, and I wanted to dive just a little bit into technology. You introduced me to XR. I don't even know what that is. I'm going to research more. But we did an episode previously with Rachel Bracker, who works with nonprofits on integrating VR into their fundraising, really helping people to connect through virtual reality about like how to experience what they do. She had an organization that she worked with that helped women in science connect to NASA. And so she created a VR moon experience so people could experience what it was like to walk on Mars. Actually, I think it was Mars, not the moon. But I don't know a lot about VR. You work a little bit more often from the production side. Can you tell me, when you've approached utilizing VR in your experiences, what is involved in that? Like, how do you actually create a VR experience? Are you picking something off a shelf, or are you like filming and creating something specific?
So that's an excellent question. It depends and is different for every single event and every single brand, and depending on the goals, right? So I can give you a great firsthand experiential example of this. It is also, again, tied to Lexus. In 2016, I think, Lexus was releasing a new model. They call it the RC. And they wanted to, and this is when virtual reality was not yet, and the goggles, the headsets were not consumer available yet. They were what Oculus was doing, what they called their DK1 kit, which was a developer's kit. So developers were using it to create cool content. And they were getting ready to release their DK2 kit, which elevated the frame rate and some of the latencies that were making people kind of nauseous when VR was coming to market, right? We've all kind of heard those stories. Yes. So we pitched this idea to Lexus of like, well, what if we do a VR experience where you get to drive the RC on a racetrack before they even hit showrooms. So we had to get, so in this experience, when we do digital and technology, we have a digital agency partner that does the ones and zeros, and we do the physical stuff. So we built this really cool simulator, driving simulator, right? We built it on actuators. So the whole simulator moved. It had a steering wheel, it had pedals. We had a Lexus steering wheel, like it had all the things. We had a graphic wrap on it. And then our digital partner came in with the ones and zeros and integrated it. But we had to get a 3D file of the vehicle, right? From, at the time, it was through Saatchi, their big agency. So we had to get the 3D file, import it into the software that was going to run it in VR. And then, but the experience was amazing, especially because VR was just coming out, right? And it was new and amazing. So we sat people down in the simulator, we put goggles on them, put headphones on them. And all of a sudden, from being on the LA Auto Show floor or some convention center, you're literally inside the vehicle. And right in front of you, you're holding on to a physical steering wheel and you're seeing a physical steering wheel. And you can see the stitching in the seats. You can see the controls in the radio. You could look in the back seat and see the back seat. You could look outside. Then we had a whole custom VR track created, racetrack, with people in the stands and and you could drive, you could do this whole lap in a car that no one had even seen yet because they hadn't gotten to dealerships. There was probably 6 months before they were even hitting dealerships. So that ended up being a huge, I mean, massive marketing win for Lexus and their agency Team One, because and then people, again, social media, people were taking pictures of each other with the goggles on. It was still so new and amazing. And that was so, it turned out to be such a great idea and a great marrying of physical analog stuff and crazy digital stuff. And we had to work with Oculus to get some of the first DK2 kits. They were in production, still not consumer available. And then we sent this thing on the road and toured it at auto shows so people could sit down and have this experience of being in this car that didn't sort of really exist to anybody yet. And it's such, now, like we talked about, technology moves so fast, you got to kind of come up with cooler, creative things. VR isn't quite as wowable as it used to be, although there's still an endless amount of cool stuff you can do with it. Then we did a cycling VR experience because, again, for Lexus, they sponsored the Amgen Tour of California and a few other big cycling tours. And so we made this opportunity where you could get on a bike, on a trainer, so the wheel just spun, and in VR, and we built this beautiful mountainous, lovely streams, rivers, butterflies floating by, and you're cycling in your goggles, and you can look around and see a whole other world. It was such a brain melter back then. Yeah, because you knew you were in your conference room, but all of a sudden you were on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So there's so many things you can do with that. I've seen medical companies do surgery training videos in VR. Automotive manufacturers, all your techs need to learn a new thing about the Honda engine, right? You send out a VR experience that walks you through how to fix the things. I mean, it's just become crazy and ubiquitous. And now you can just obviously buy your VR setup for a few $100s, have it in your house, play games, watch movies. It
reminds me of that holiday when Oculus first came out and everyone was gifting holiday, Oculus glasses, and all the social media footage came out of moms, dads trying it for the first time and running through the wall or
that was a learning curve.
Right. I think that there is so much opportunity there, and I'm interested to see how that continues to sort of matriculate into the nonprofit sector, because so many of our organizations do work in other locations in other countries, in work that sometimes is confidential that we can't get access to. The Clean Water Project is using this in a really interesting format, that at their event, you can go through a simulation to better understand the impact of the well. And you actually get escorted by one of the women that they work with, who takes you into the village and shows you how they chose the well location and dug the well. And you get to have that connection. So I'm curious to see how VR continues to integrate into the nonprofit work that we do. So.
Yeah, one of the biggest stumbling blocks with VR and that kind of technology is that it is very expensive to produce. It's very hard to do complex tech on a budget, unfortunately. So I usually tell people that a pretty immersive VR experience kind of starts at $200,000 or $300,000, and that prices out a lot of people. I mean, it prices out a lot of brands, a lot of companies that don't want to spend the money, don't have the budget, don't yet believe the ROI on something like that is as valuable as maybe it is. So that's still, hopefully that will come down over time, but that's a big barrier to some.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, in that example, finding a way to take it out of the room, to take it out of that room, right? Can this be an investment for your organization future forward, and in many different ways? Not just the donors in that room experiencing your mission, but conversations you're having with other donors moving forward as a way to experience your mission. That I think there's a lot. I think sometimes people get really, really focused on the one event budget,
Yeah.
where
Totally.
we're encouraging folks to create collateral for that event that has utility for them in other ways, and to continue to create those experiences in other ways.
And that's super smart and super crucial, right? Amortizing it over time, right? Like
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
going to put all this investment into this virtual reality experience that has a lot of positives for our company or our brand or our mission, but knowing that we're going to continue to use this for the next 5 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And maybe we go in, we spend a little money to update branding and update the messaging or update whatever it is in it. But once you've got the core stuff done, you've got it built in the Unity, the gaming engine or whatever it's in, then that's a good point. Like that part is done. But then you can recycle it over time as many times as you want while it's appropriate until the hardware bit sort of times out.
Yeah, I saw
Ride it till the wheels come off.
I saw
100%.
I saw a Big Cat Sanctuary that did a VR experience that they used in their event. They had it there at the sanctuary as an experience that the attendees could use, because it gave you an up close and personal interaction with a wild big cat that you wouldn't have been able to have safely, So
Sure.
it's something that they used in their fundraising events, but also used just in their everyday interactions of people coming and going.
Hotel brands too. Like hotel brands are giving virtual reality experiences at some of their hotels of all of their other hotels.
Yeah.
So you
Oh.
might be in a hotel in London and be like, oh, here, sit here. Let me show you the one in Dubai, right? Or the one in
Wow.
Shanghai, right? And then again, right, from a marketing perspective, you're like, oh my, wow, look at you get this whole global view of a brand or an experience that you wouldn't ever have had unless you actually got on a plane and went somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get Sammy in the fundraising elevator.
Unleash the power of events to energize your donors and amplify your mission. Join us at the Elevate Conference in 2025, where you'll learn the essential tools for planning a successful fundraising event. Book your tickets now for March 12th and 13th. This dynamic hybrid conference, hosted at Avenue in Portland, Oregon, and streamed live for our virtual audience, will equip you with practical tools, demos, and templates that you can put to work immediately. Don't miss out. Secure your spot today at Elevate 2025. Visit elevatenonprofit.com to register now. Elevate Conference 2025 is brought to you by Swaim Strategies and the AV Department, powered by elevatenonprofit.com.
Welcome back. We are here with Sammy Bliss talking about immersive experiences. We're going to get him in the fundraising elevator, where we're all headed up. What is a tool or a bit of sage advice you have for folks about how to design an immersive experience out there so that they can keep heading up?
Let's say creativity. Like budget's important, right? And budget will always play a part. But like, as we discussed earlier, having a creative angle on it, on figuring out what is going to be immersive for people, what is going to be engaging for people, knowing your audience and your mission and your goals. Creativity is everything, right? And again, thinking through what are people going to walk away with from this experience? What kind of wow factor can we give them? And then you got to factor in your budget and all that kind of stuff. You have to be practical as a producer, of course, right? But really, like, creativity is, in my book, the one thing all humans can kind of like relate to and connect with.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some people are not creative at all, right? And that's fine, but there's still like an experiential, innate something in all of us that I feel like likes creativity, whether it's just a really cool, good idea or a beautiful set design at a concert or a walkthrough exhibit at a museum. Like, creativity is where it all comes from for me. So I think that the best tip would be really just starting there. And whether that comes from you, or you've got to engage somebody to be your creative partner, your source, your designer, your conceptor, getting, again, back to the live theater thing, like getting people together with a central mission and goal. When everybody's got their own take on creativity, that's where the magic happens. And then if you've got budget to do more, awesome, right?
Yeah.
But the concepting, the idea, the writing it out on paper, that's everything up front.
I love it.
Well, I am always wowed when I attend anything you do, whether you're performing on stage, DJing, creating an immersive experience. So I want to give people the opportunity to find out more about you. How can folks find you and find your work at ASV?
Absolutely. So our website is super easy. It is ASV1.com. So like Apple, Sam, Victor, the number 1. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn under Sammy Bliss. Probably best way to track me down. And I think those are probably the 2 best ways to go.
Excellent. Well, as we close, I want to tell you one of my favorite immersive experiences that you shared was the installation you did in Seattle in the middle of a lake. You created a Wendy's on water, which I just thought was such a fun sort of surprise and delight for probably the entire city. So thank you for sharing all your great ideas. I love that you share so much of what you do on social media, lots of inspiration and big thinking. And thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. It's so good to see you again.
Bye, everyone.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced in partnership with Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV Department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson, Heidi Christensen, and Adam Breeden. Video production by Shannon Doran. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. Marketing by Lisa Aragon. Support from Mary Elizabeth, Todd Campbell, John Lyles, and Andy Dowsett. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Friends, before we leave you, we want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please follow, subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, please share it with a friend and leave a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've been partnering with Greater Giving for over 20 years as our go-to event auction software. Greater Giving allows us to do our job planning fundraising events even better because we can manage guest lists, seating, bid number assignments, and sales all in one place.
That makes it great for our nonprofit partners and their guests. Check out Greater Giving for your next event at greatergiving.com. Link in the show notes.